All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. Tonight, I've got a little project I'm going to do. I'm going to be running this with the 20-watt Falcon 2. I had a lot of questions this week about glass and etching glass, what settings to use on the 20-watt. And so, since most of my experience with glass and mirrors and stuff like that was done with 10 watts before, I decided that the project that I was going to do with the Creality Falcon 2 here is going to be a project pertaining to glass. So just to go ahead and get it out of the way, this is a machine that was sent to me to try out and do a little testing with. So far, I've found a couple of little things that we're going to go over during the video that I'm not crazy about, but there's some good features as well. So if engraving glass is something that interests you, stick around and we're going to get to it. All right, guys, as I said, this is going to be I'm going to be using Lightburn for this job. I do most all of my work through Lightburn. This is a 22-watt machine, so it should have more than enough power to do what we want to do. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is going to be a guess at the settings, but I do enough engraving with different machines and different powers that I think I can come up with a good number to start us out with. But first of all, this is not an expensive picture frame. This is just a cheap picture frame that you can get at any Dollar General or Dollar Tree, dollar store. I mean, it's just a cheap picture frame. Now, if you don't like the wood or the frame around it, if you just want a piece of pane of glass to use to make your own custom frame, that's what I do. I usually buy these guys, and you can get them for $1 or $2, and I just take the glass out, make my own frame out of my own custom wood, and it saves me from having to buy panes of glass, because if you live in a small town like I do, it's kind of hard to find a glass store to just buy, this size pane of glass. So to me, it's easier just to buy a cheap document frame like this, sacrifice it to make something better. But I will tell you, I have found that the more expensive the glass is, it tends to not etch as well. But now this stuff is very brittle. It has something to do with the molecular structure of the glass, and we're not going to get into the science of it, but there is a reason that the cheaper glass does, to me, seem to take the engrave a little better. You get a little bit more frosting out of it, it seems. So what I'm going to do is I have taken and I've just used some regular Rust-Oleum flat black paint, and I painted this guy. And I know, guys, you can use chalk paint, you can use Ceramark, which, there again, guys, it's expensive. You can use the chalk paint. You can use, I've got some of the water-based paint that you can paint on with a brush. There's several different approaches. I can't do a good enough job with the brush to keep streaks out of my engrave, so I steer clear of that. Not real handy with an airbrush. Don't really want to have to fool with the cleanup of an airbrush after doing, a one-off like this. So my go-to is just good old-fashioned flat black spray paint. And if you're using spray paint on glass, it's always good to keep a heat gun handy, because you can dry this stuff on glass in just a few minutes and not have to sit and wait for hours for it to dry. The heat gun is also effective for like tile or anything that you're not going to melt. Mirrors, stuff like that. If you put a coating on there and you want to expedite that drying process, a heat gun or a hair dryer. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a hair dryer. It works too, but don't let your wife catch you because they frown upon that. And I've learned that one the hard way. But the heat gun works really well at getting that drying process done. So we're going to move on now, and what I'm going to do is I've decided that I'm just going to make this one, I'm just going to come up with something and make this one and build the image, and we're going to engrave it and try not to go too long with it. So what I thought I would do would just be to put something, since Easter's right around the corner, I thought maybe it might do, like an Easter themed design. So I'm going to get that built, and you'll be able to see it on the TV here once I get it designed, get it dropped in. We're going to put the piece on there and go to making it engrave. All right, guys, so like I said, this is just going to be a demonstration for you guys. So I just picked myself a Easter design, which is going to be like a little egg with a rabbit in it, and I have put it in the middle of my workspace. One thing that I do want to point out to you is when you're doing glass, one thing that I have noticed is if you're not careful, especially with a honeycomb or a flat surface, when you're engraving through the back of the glass, you can get some reflectivity or just enough heat off of, say, a honeycomb or some type of other material that's on the other side of your work surface that can cause just little marks, maybe a little shadowing on the other side. So what I've done is I've put a couple of little spacers of some scrap wood outside the area of my work area so that it can engrave in the center and have an air gap between the workpiece and the honeycomb. That's going to give me about 4.5 to 5 millimeters of space just to make sure I don't get any of the reflectivity back on the glass. So it also makes the cleanup a little easier because you don't get all that stuff off of the honeycomb, doesn't adhere to it as much. Because if your honeycomb's as dirty as mine is today, you will have some cleanup to do on the other side. So this image does not have text or anything on it. So you can see the image here on the television that I've got here. It doesn't have any text. It's just going to be the bunny. So this thing's kind of, it doesn't matter as far as the direction, but if this were text, you're going through the back of the mirror and you're going to be looking at it from the front. So you're going to want to flip that. And the way you would do so would be to use one of these little buttons right here, the little paper airplane buttons, and that's gonna flip it one way or the other to where it's inverted for the mirror. So just remember that you're always going to want to do to flip the text backwards if you're planning on doing text or something that has a right and a left. This design doesn't necessarily, so I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to burn it like it is. All right, guys, so you can see I'm using my squaring jig, and even though I've got these little pieces of scrap wood under here, I'm still using just a slight edge of that square jig to make sure that this thing is square. Like I said, with this design, it's not that critical, but if this were text or a square design, and we may do some other stuff. I may put a square around it. We may play with this thing and try to dress it up before we're done. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna run this design here, and it should be in the center. And the way I accomplish that, I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not, but I have a framing line that is around the design, and then I inserted the design in the middle. I used the framing line to basically trace the outer edge of my workpiece. And then once I got it to where it traced appropriately or it framed appropriately, then I just used the center button up here, the little bullseye button, to take and make sure that the egg was centered on my little work tool frame. And so that should put my egg in the center, or at least really, really close to it. This machine, one of the negatives, I'll go ahead and point this out. One of the negatives is I don't like the screen that's on there. I can't frame as accurately as I can when I can see the blue diode. So that's the only big negative I've got so far. It is a little funny sometimes. It prefers to boot and go through its test sequence without being plugged in on the USB port. So that's the only caveat, is power it up, let it do its self-test and all that, then plug the USB to it, and it doesn't give you any trouble. But sometimes it will kind of get hung up. Seems like it gets lost in the boot cycle if you plug it up before you power it up. And that may be something that they can fix with a firmware update. I honestly think what it is it's looking for that port to be a diagnostic port, and it's interrupting the boot cycle. But I could be wrong. I haven't messed with it. Like I said, this is as it was sent to me. So, but that's the only two hang-ups that I have really found. Other than that, it's a solid machine. Once you figure out how to work around those two little things, it does a good job. This is a 20-watt laser, so I'm going to go ahead and step out on a limb and say that I think I can frost this glass. From what I've seen with this machine, I think at 100 millimeters per second, at 100% output, I'll be able to get a pretty decent frosting on this glass. And so I'm going to run it at that first, and then we'll look at it. If it doesn't look dark enough, I can always run it again. But that's where we're going to go. So I'm going to go over here to my settings on the cut layer, and you should be able to see it on the screen. It is set to 100% at 100 millimeters per second. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to frame it one more time just to make sure that it's where I want it. And like I said, you can see the chassis is big enough that I really can't get in there to see the dot when it's framing in certain areas. And that's just kind of a hang up for me. But I've came up with a remedy to it, but I'm just kind of holding off until I do a good bit of testing with this machine before I go to modifying that head. So here we go. And the resolution, the LPI on this one, I'm not doing anything spectacular with it. This machine so far has performed pretty well at 127, and that's what I'm running this as. I think with the power of this machine and the dot size, I think I'll get a really good frosting at that power setting without doing anything crazy with the LPI. Now, I do have the air assist turned off on this layer. And this machine does have the automatic air assist. But because it's engraving and because there's not a lot of debris coming off of it, I've just decided not to run the air assist to try to keep from blasting all those little tiny fragments of glass up into the air. All right, guys, so that part got completed. And I've been thinking about what else I was going to do, because if this is going to be like basically like a little decorative piece, I kind of want to add a little more to it. So I'm going to go in into light burn and I'm going to add some text and I'm going to make it kind of wrap around. And it's just going to say happy and kind of curved format up top, and across the bottom I'm going to put Easter, just to kind of put some text on it too. But it looks like the burn did exactly what I wanted it to do. I should have that nice, smooth, consistent frosting without a whole lot of damage to the glass. All right, guys, I realized in the engrave I didn't like the way the happy looked, and I was going to stop it and try to change it, but we're just going to rock with it. Like I said, this is just a demo piece, and I'm sure my wife will gladly take it. She's not going to be that particular about it, but I don't know if it's the way the egg is sitting in this particular image or just the curvature of those particular letters, but I just don't like the way it looks. But it's working on the word happy. And as soon as it gets done, I'm going to show you the last couple of things that you can do. All right, guys, the burn got through, but I had to move my top little support piece because it was about to get in the way of the graphics, and it will leave an image on the front of the glass if you have anything under there. So I was able to gently get it out and get it moved so that I didn't hit the the top piece. But there it is, straight off of the laser. Now I got to go clean this up. I'm going to be using alcohol to wipe this down and clean it, and then I'm going to show you the remaining step. All right, guys, got the burn done. And for these projects, like I said, these are easy ones. You can do the same thing with mirrors, but a lot of times, you don't really want that mirror effect. So what these are, basically when you paint that thing black, you're going to make it look like it's just a piece of opaque glass that you can't see through. And then when you etch it, you get a result, okay? And then once you get the result, you can take some just regular construction paper with these certificate frames. They fit this construction paper perfectly. So if you have a color of construction paper that you like, or craft paper, whichever you may want to call it, then all you do is you put your picture back in the frame. And in this case, I put a piece of the fuchsia or pink looking paper behind it and just put the frame back together. So that's how you get this effect. And you can do this with blue. I can put blue back here. You could do red. You could do whatever color. I just used the fuchsia color because. But once you put it back in the frame, basically where you engraved it at, it's kind of frosted, and so it kind of it almost like gives it that it's frosted, but it has color. So I know I see a lot of folks, they're putting, doing engraving, and then they're putting these different, powder coats and stuff like that in there and engraving over it, and that's great. But with this one, if I get tired of this color, I can always take my picture frame here and just take it apart. And depending on what you do this with, I mean, like I said, these things, you can get these frames for like $25 for a pack of 5 or 6 of them on Amazon. And that's the construction paper that I had in the background of that one, of there. Without the construction paper, this is what you end up with. And if you wanted to do like a backlit look, you could. So if you wanted like a backlit design, I mean, you could do that. You could put a light behind here. I would try to hide them below. So you could do backlit like you do with mirrors, or you could just take your craft paper and put it in the frame. Like I said, this is a certificate frame, and so it's specifically built to fit sheets of paper. And so now you've got a blue one. And guys, I picked this stuff up at Walmart, and I've got yellow. We could do yellow if you wanted, a little piece of yellow paper. And so the way that you do these is really, it's kind of simple. Like I said, this is a $4 to $5 picture frame. That is what I started with. And so now I got a yellow one. So whatever color you want to do, whether you want to do yellow, pink, red, there's no limit. The only color that I wouldn't recommend would be black, of course, because you probably wouldn't be able to see that through the engrave. But let's see what else colors I got in here. I've got a green, like a lime green. We can try that. Okay, so now we got a green one. So that's the options. And I mean, if you really want to get creative, if you're like my friend May May and you do stuff with paper a lot, I mean, you could go in here and make this guy, you can make it green on one side and blue on the other. Or however, you could cut little squares of this stuff out and just stick them in random places and make it all sorts of colors. So there's a lot of options. So this is one of those projects that if you have, want to make a unique gift or unique thing for something, a kid's room, favorite sports team, whatever, $5 worth of frame, a little bit of flat black paint, and I prefer flat because I just have better luck with it. So when you put the flat black on there, it looks gloss from this side. I mean, because it's on glass. So it looks like gloss black. But on the back where you're doing the engraving, it absorbs a lot more of the light and gives you that nice frosted look on the back. But that's just one more project idea, guys. One more little thing that you can do. It's a win. I'm not crazy about the way the Happy turned out. I don't like the rounded font as much as I thought I would because either the eggs twisted or something. But I centered the text, so I think it's the eggs a little out of misshape or something. But anyway, I'm pretty sure wife's not gonna be too critical about it. Like I said, she gets a lot of my little projects that I do to show you guys. But really the only supplies you need: cheap frame, construction paper of whatever color, and some spray paint, a little bit of rubbing alcohol for the cleanup, because after you do the engrave, you're gonna wanna go through there and clean that guy with some rubbing alcohol or something. You don't want anything that's gonna take the paint off, but you do wanna kind of clean that little bit of residue. And I probably could have done a little better job on cleaning this one, but we're doing the video, trying to keep things rolling. And so I just, hit it with the rag for a few seconds and moved on. But you get the idea. But guys, like I said, I try when I can to do videos to kind of show you what is possible and what you can do. And since I had the Creality and it was sitting here on the table, this is one of those projects that I felt like it could do relatively quick, being it's a 20 watt. The power I use, again, recapping, 100 millimeters per second at 100% output. And I got a decent frosting with some reflectivity. You could run the LPI up on glass. It does kind of help give you a little more frosting. Easy project, guys, and you can do it with any laser. I use the Creality Falcon2. I will be putting some links down below if you're interested. You want to go look at that thing. But any laser, whether it be a 20 watt, 5.5, it's gonna take you a lot more time. But a 20 watt, a 10 watt, whatever, you can do this. Now you may want to buy extra frame and just play with the settings and figure out what you like best by doing an engrave test on one of the pieces. But any of these lasers can do it with the diodes as long as you take and you coat the glass first. Like I said, flat black's my go-to. It works. You can try other colors if you'd like. All right, guys, that does it for tonight's episode of the Clack Shack. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys that are getting into lasers, I try to give you affordable, cheap, easy to do projects that don't require a lot of skills with the laser. Do remember though, flip the text. If it's text, flip it. If it's anything that's supposed to be right to left or left to right, make sure that you flip it from your perspective and from your screen. If you don't, it'll be backwards. Trust me, guys. I messed up on this one. I forgot to flip it. So I'm not perfect, guys. I make mistakes. But that's why I buy packs of these things. You don't just buy one, you buy packs. It turned out really good everywhere else, but I forgot to flip the text here, and I wound up with some inverted text on the bottom. So I was like, So I went ahead just to show you guys the correct way and done it again to fix it. But just so when you make those mistakes, guys, and you're like, it's the end of the world, it's not, okay? That's how you learn. And when you mess up a few pieces of picture frame, it helps that memory retention. So have fun. I hope this helps. If you make one of those things, be sure to send me a picture of it over in the laser engraver community page that we've created, myself and Steve. We kind of drop in and look at projects, and I like seeing you guys take my ideas and run with it and make things, make money, help pay for your hobby, that type of thing. And also, don't forget about our Sunday Night Lives at 7 p.m. Steve and I will be hanging out, answering questions, talking about what's coming out, what's the latest and greatest laser, and just the weather. Who knows? But if you want to check that out, Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central, Steve and I, and also go check out that Facebook page, and you can share some of your works, see some of the other guys' works that come, watch the channel, and just, share ideas. So until next time, guys, be safe and have a good day.